Live on Instagram.
Oh, hey Insta. Hey guys. Welcome. This is the Final Click Marketing Show with Ronnie Soud.
And I'm Kacie.
And today we are going to be diving into a topic that is very pertinent. It always comes up with every organization, every client. It is the feeling of overwhelm and anxiety that marketing might bring. And I see this is something that's been accelerating for years. I think because media has changed. It used to be more simple and streamlined, and today it's more chopped up, I would say. But in every business that I go to, and we're going to be talking, this conversation is for personal brands like Kacie, who has her own podcast, as well as small businesses that are trying to get started or in the beginning phases. Even like large enterprise corporations that I go in and talk to and help train, I see this feeling of anxiety and overwhelm within the staff as it relates to marketing the organization there. And so I wanted to do a show. We don't have a whole lot of structure to this show today. We're going to see where the conversation takes us. And we're going to be giving a ton of our personal experience to maybe help you guys out with where you are on your marketing journey. So.
Well, I think you make a good point about maybe the feeling of overwhelm has increased because of the way the media has changed. So, because it's not just the shift to digital. So we're no longer creating, commercials and print ads that live in multiple places for a long time, but also, and you mentioned this in a previous shorter video, like digital is growing, but it's also dividing. So there's so many different channels, and each channel is a little nuanced in how you best get your messaging out there, and you kind of want a strategy behind all of it. So that's where I start to get overwhelmed. It's like, oh my gosh, if you think about all of it. So, okay, how's my website? Do I have my whole sales funnel set up? What is my email strategy? Am I on all the socials? And what is the messaging there? And so whereas that's just way more complicated than it used to be.
It is, and you brought up something. It's the new, I think what a lot of people feel today is that there is personality today in all great marketing. And I think we recognize that and we want to emulate it, but that's the anxiety component that comes with it, is that, oh, do I have to put myself out there, and in what capacity, and how vulnerable do I have to look? And, it doesn't matter if you sell bags or tires or if you're a service that people choose to use. I noticed that anxiety component of, maybe who's going to be the face of everything that we do. That's where the anxiety comes in. The nuance part is where the overwhelm tends to come in a lot, because like you said, every channel has a few of its own little quirks to make it tick. And that's where people feel this overwhelm. Like, do I have to be on all of them? Do I have to do content a certain way? Do I have to do stuff I'm not comfortable with? And the simple answer is no. So you shouldn't be feeling uncomfortable. It should be something that you grow into and it feels natural. Yes.
But I think that is so, and you and Dania talk about this a lot, how like everything is branding now. And with the concept of personal brands, whether it be management or your employees, like they're out there on the internet. So there's like all this branding component, which then can be good, or if done incorrectly can have negative consequences depending on maybe what your employees are putting out on the internet. But it's also like there's so much out there. It's so crowded. So on top of all the different channels and the nuances of each, we all have this awareness, like, how do I break through the noise?
Right.
And breaking through the noise, I think, and we were talking about this the other day, is finding that very unique voice to your organization, which usually involves, I personally think, some level of vulnerability of this is who we are as a company. And vulnerability is tough because it's always a risk of not being well received, or it's just, I mean, vulnerability is tough for us as humans, let alone as businesses. So
exactly.
Yeah, I think that adds an extra overwhelming and scary component.
Well, we're in the middle of this now, like us, Soud Marketing, the group here. We're in the middle of this now. So I think I'll go with the personal.
Go for it. Get vulnerable.
First. Yeah. So So this is my second agency. My first was, we were still in digital marketing, but we were vertically specific. When I restarted here locally in North Florida and dedicated to serving North Florida, that was the first pill that I had to swallow. I did international work, and we do marketing work in 6 different languages, but it's just a little different today and who we go after. And so as a business owner, I had to swallow a few pills when I restarted here, and that was okay. And then the restart was a little bit slow. And so I actually restarted under a different business name than what I'm currently operating at today. So 2 years ago, we were RJS Digital Marketing and Media. And, we were doing some marketing, but in all honesty, it didn't feel right. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel right flowing out of me. and then I didn't feel like the community was kind of grabbing onto the name and making the connection with my personal name, with my business name. It just wasn't where I wanted it to be. And so,
why do you think that was? Like, did you feel like, were you trying to do it a certain way that then wasn't authentic to who you are? Like, were you trying to follow some template that's out there of like, this is the best way to do it?
It wasn't a template. I think I wanted to at first appear like we had more to offer than what our core competency really is. And our core competency is phenomenal, right? It's very popular right now. It's basically search and social media advertising. But I wanted that appearance for some reason that I didn't know why. And it just didn't fit. I was always having to explain it, And so what we did, I thought about it for a few months and realized that I needed to change the name and then needed to change the website. Again, this was my, y'all might not be in the same boat, but also change the way what I advertise on the website as well. And so that dealt with the services and the way that we talked about them and the way that we talked about rolling them out and so on and so forth, and being more forthcoming as well. And so when I did that, I think it opened us up more. It made the conversations more narrow with every client, which allowed us to go deeper into the topics to help them out even more. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I see us doing today. And I think that change helped us flow right into marketing and advertising. Mm-hmm. I was kind of poking around back then with LinkedIn and, Facebook and doing a little bit of content, but the change really helped mentally align me more.
So that brings up a good point in terms of, so digital media, as we talked about, is growing and dividing, but so then is the marketing component of it. Mm-hmm. It's almost like healthcare, how healthcare then became very specialized. Like most physicians have like a very specific specialty that they go deep in and they're the best at. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where digital marketing is as well. Like there's creative and then there's more of the traffic and like there's all these different components. So you always have more to offer if you go deep in one area versus try and be all over the place.
I think that's what everyone is thirsting for, not just from a business to business standpoint, but I think our consumers are thirsting for that too.
Well, so then the benefit of that too is then you have like a team. So you have a team of people that are each experts in their area, which means more points of view, more out of the box ideas. Like that's just better than 2 people deciding what's best for an organization.
Exactly. And that's, too, going narrower allows you to, I would say, shape your conversations better. And then will also allow you to expand geographically to find other people that are interested in that too, because you have that narrow focus, right? Marketing channels today, there's sort of micro conversations that go on within each of them. And that's how we search and hashtags we follow and, all that kind of stuff. We search deep and we follow deep for what we like and what we're in the market for right now.
Yeah.
And so that helps you out as a business, I think, to narrow focus as sort of a step one I think to getting past the overwhelmed and the anxiety feeling is defining who are you looking to serve, right? And so marketing today is I think part of your service offering. In that, we all need outbound messaging, outbound educational content to everyone. That's sort of like a step one into who are you going to serve, who are you going to educate, and then step two starts leading them more down the funnel of interacting with you, becoming a potential prospect and customer, and in some cases an evangelist, like what we see more in your field, where you have your role with your podcast. So Kacie, I'm gonna let you talk about that.
Okay.
But so Kacie has a podcast that deals in personal development, and so her end game, a little different than mine, right, is to grow fans and followers and such, and have them be consistent and hanging on to every next episode.
Right. So in my space, I mean, authenticity and vulnerability is like key. If I go out there and I'm not true to myself, which is hard to do because you get all the comparisonitis and all this stuff, but I mean, people pick up on that. I think they pick up on that with businesses too. Any business, it's like if you're not being, and this is where I'm going to get all like personal development, but like if you're not being true to who you are, like people sense that, and then for the most part they're going to be turned off by that. So and so then it becomes, in my space, it's this weird place. And I imagine this is true for like a lot of personal brands is, okay, so I'm supposed to be on all these different channels. I'm supposed to be putting all this outbound messaging out there, but how do I do all that in a strategic marketing way, yet also be very real? Because like when you sit down and like plan out a bunch of posts, it's like not necessarily, I'm feeling like I've got something to say right now. So it's almost, then you're kind of like forcing it, and that's where I start to get in like a head spin of, okay, I should be strategic and, put together an email, just do all the digital marketing stuff. And then I swing back over into, okay, it'll all kind of happen as it's supposed to. Like I'll figure it out as I go along.
I want to go back to something that you said, because you said comparisonitis.
Yeah.
Okay. So comparisonitis, this plagues a lot of new clients that I go in and speak with, is they compare themselves too heavily to someone else. Oftentimes it's a competitor that they emulate, and then they want to too strongly emulate them. And I have a client who's in the retail space that does this. So they service locally, but they emulate someone who has stores nationally. And honestly, that's inauthentic, right? There's no way that you can keep pace with that store. Not in terms of growth and spend and all that kind of stuff. And two, what happened is that it made them homogenous. So instead of taking their messaging down a unique road, from the consumer standpoint, it sounds like two identical companies,
right? And
they can't differentiate between who they want to use. And so that, that's something that I see that plagues personal brands as well, is because they too closely emulate and try to
that
copy.
Plagues just us as humans. Like we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people, wanting to be like other people, instead of embracing and accepting who we are and the uniqueness that is that. Like every individual has a unique gift, a unique voice, just so then every business, which is a compilation of however many people, like there's a unique voice and a unique message and a unique offering. And maybe it ties to your actual products, or maybe it's kind of a level a little bit higher of that, of just your values and what you believe in. But it's like, you've got to find and be who you are, not try and be who someone else is. And I think with digital marketing and social media and personal branding, just all of this, we get into this, there's tons of information out there of how to do it. And so in an effort,
the templates.
Yeah. In an effort to figure it out, you then lean on these expert sources saying, this is how you do it. But then you're like you said, you're being them, not being you, instead of just like trusting what feels right to you.
100%, and so what, if you follow those templates too heavily, I think they're good at organizing people mentally, but I think the component that most of them leave out is how to sit down and differentiate and not follow the template like to the T, but figure out, what's the personality of this business, this organization, right? Because those are the most successful clients that I've had. The most successful campaigns that I've run are ones that play off of the personalities of the organization, right? Where they said, no, we go down this road, we deal with these people, we serve them in this way. This is our tone, this is our personality. We know that this works and we don't want to deviate from that. Those people, they're fantastic, but they're kind of few and far between. It's great that they have that figured out. By the way, that didn't happen overnight. It took them 30 years to get to the right answer for that. And so, I think the speed of this process takes time. And I think that's what a lot of people want to quickly overcome. They feel anxiety because they haven't overcome it yet, when it's something that might take time. And, in channeling you too, it might be a little bit of personal development that you have to do as a business owner and as a person, and say, you know what, this is my personality for this particular business, whether you're selling cakes or, trying to go sell to Fortune 500 companies. You have to have that uniqueness is what helps you stand out.
Yes. And one of my mantras for the longest time, which I need to remember on a daily basis, is trust the process. And we tend to want to jump to this, I'm doing everything and I'm doing it perfectly and everybody. And yes, that's the goal, but you only ever get there one step at a time. And I think that's one of which I had never thought of this until I started working here with you, is one of the beautiful things about digital marketing and the different channels is you can test. So you can test out your process. Right. Like, all right, we're going to put this messaging or this kind of personality out there, and then we're going to see like how are people responding to it. They're not, oh, okay, we're going to shift gears. Like nothing's set in stone. So that willingness to kind of try and test and take that risk is trusting the process, that only by doing that and getting actual data back on how your customers are or not responding to it, that's how you'll move along your process. Right.
Grow.
Yes.
Grow as a personality, and then grow eventually as an organization. And so Kate, you've been working here for a month and a half,
something like that.
Okay.
Month and a half. Yeah.
So we didn't have great social media output for a long time. And so then we got Kacie. Now we have phenomenal social media output, I feel like. But, that was a process. So we had to grow into that. And, part of that was we had to organize the company correctly to do it. We had to make sure that it fit our schedules. And it was only until that point that I decided to go all in and commit to a show every week and commit to, other shorter videos every single week. And then also commit to the process of distribution. And, when mentally too, I said, I'm okay. I want to be on social media. I think there's a lot of potential for us there. And, if we don't get it right. So I think, and you can speak, I didn't put any pressure on you. There's no numerical figure that I wanted Kacie to hit, right? What I wanted to do is come and instill a process for growth and be married to that process and watch all of it grow. And so that's currently where we are. I'm not focusing too heavily on the ROI of what she's doing every single day. Not right now.
Well, good thing. No, but it has been a learning process, and really it was. And we've had I'm an action oriented person. So you say let's start posting. I'm just gonna create posts and start posting, and then we slowly started with some feedback from you of, okay, I like this, I don't like this, can we change this? We're starting to narrow it down to, okay, these are the types of posts we want to be doing. Right. But we only did that, if you look back into our social, things have changed. And because we just started. It's we just started, and then it's okay, now let's look at it and refine it, because otherwise if you're trying to create something perfect to put out there immediately, then you get into analysis paralysis and there's no movement.
Right. And that we talk about a lot. The worst thing to do is to do nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's no growth in doing nothing. And so at least you can learn, if you put stuff out and people don't like it, at least you can learn that didn't resonate with them. Right.
Yeah.
And don't take it personally. Just pivot
all
to the next
these are like
idea.
total personal development themes.
Oh yeah. Well, this is
don't take it personally. That's
right.
a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, just start. And why do we not start? Because we're afraid of failing. So fear of failure, that's a big thing with all of us as individuals. Right. And your business is made up of individuals. So it's just a bunch of humans making decisions. So, wherever anyone is with struggling with their own insecurities or fear of failure, that's going to play into the decisions they're making for the business.
Right. The business's culture is, predicated on, what the decision makers deem important and what their personalities are for leading those individuals that execute everything. And so if you're just getting started on your marketing journey, if you're a new business or if you're established and just getting started, you have to set that tone that it's okay. We're getting started. We need to learn. We're dedicated to this in some form. Give them rope to grow too as individuals.
And you definitely did that. You even said, he's like, we might blow all this up in 2 weeks and totally change.
That's how we
gears.
talk. We might bomb it all and switch. Yeah.
We might change everything. And so it's like, okay, we'll just do it. Like, it's okay. Like, let's just start. And so I think that as leaders is sometimes challenging to delegate and give your staff that kind of rope, but I think it's necessary that they feel comfortable to make a mistake.
One, I want to ask you some questions about your podcast, but along that point, at my previous agency, we didn't lead like that. So I had two other partners in that, and we did some fantastic things that I would not be the person today that I am without them. But what happened is a lot of our decision making wound up putting too much stress on us as owners and did not allow us to get the most out of our staff to push the company forward. And that showed through in the marketing, which then also showed through in the work. We did fantastic work, but what wound up happening is it was hard to take us out of some of these projects because of the way we positioned ourselves. We were a little too controlling upon the messaging that went out, and it made the company appear smaller, I think, than it actually was. And thus our clients could not get off of us. And then we had output issues. And so we, had to start breaking it apart.
If everything has to funnel through you, then that's going to slow things down. And so, that ability to let go of control, that's a whole other personal development.
Right.
It's like, do you have to control everything? And if you do, then you either haven't put a team in place that you trust, or you just need to work on that. Because you should have the reason to have a team is that you're not doing everything.
And, when Kacie says you need to work on that, it means that you need to have clear objectives and goals, and give your team the right foot to start on. I think make a plan and say, okay, this is how we're going to start. Don't just offload it today. Marketing is so important today that it's not something that can be ignored at all. Marketing today is bridging just into communicating with potential customers, right? And so that's how fast paced it moves. But you, the leader of your business or organization, you need to make sure that the people that are helping you out have all the tools in place. That means, things like the tone, the goals, the targets, so on and so forth. And again, be okay in accepting the feedback that might have not worked. Fine, but make sure that they're empowered to say, but let's try this instead. Right. And keep trying this instead as you see fit, And the 30th time you do, you'll get it right the first time. So, as they say, it took us 30 tries to get it right the first time. So Now with yourself, you wrote a book.
I did.
And then, so what prompted you to want to write a book? Did you just, well, I know you have experiences in it, but did you wake up one day and you have that goal and then?
Okay, so I always had that goal as a child, like, I want to write a book one day. I don't know, it was just kind of a random goal. And I kind of lost touch with that along the way. You just kind of, sometimes you forget those childhood goals. And I was 32 and I've always had a very blessed life, but life was it was not great. I didn't feel energized. I didn't feel inspired. My love life was a freaking disaster. And so what I decided to do growing up and going to Catholic school my whole life, I always loved the concept of giving up something for Lent, just because I like the challenge of it. So I was like, okay, what am I going to give up this year? I'm like, I've done soda, chocolate. 1 year I tried to give up stairs.
You give up stairs.
I tried to give up going upstairs, going up elevators. I tried to give up elevators. All right. And so I'm like, I'll only take stairs. Yeah. But then I always had these meetings in these really high buildings. I'm like, that didn't work. Anyways, so I decided to give up, this is getting so personal and vulnerable. So I gave up men for Lent, and then also social media, sweets, and hard liquor, because I was still kind of in a little bit of a party phase in my life.
You detoxed from
everything. I detoxed from everything. And what that did was it just kickstarted me into this super like self-reflective stage where I was like anti everything personal development prior to this. Like, it's stupid, I don't need it. And that's just how life works out, and it's very ironic. But I started all of those distractions like away. I just started to think through a lot of my life and all this stuff. And so then I started journaling, and it felt really good to write. And so then I kept doing it. And it was probably a week or two into journaling every day. At some point I committed, I'm going to journal every day through Lent. And then at some point I was like, this could be my book. So it wasn't until
that's awesome.
Yeah, I cleared all the noise and distractions out of my head that I like got back in touch with what I really wanted to do and like what felt right to me. And so that's why now one of my big things telling people, and I think this applies to businesses as well, especially if you're like the owner of a business, is have some quiet time where you just you aren't thinking through your to-do list, you aren't thinking through your agenda, your schedule, your marketing plan, your digital analytics. You're not thinking through any of that. It's just kind of quiet, and like that frees up space for some of the big, better ideas to come through.
Exactly. You know, I love that too. I love the fact that you also committed to documenting, you know, through Lent. You did that? Okay.
Which actually is like 46 days, not just 40 days.
Right.
Because I guess in the 40 days, they don't count Sunday.
Yeah, that's your cheat day, right?
Well, I did not cheat.
Oh, good.
Well, I didn't succeed fully, but I didn't cheat on Sundays.
You know, but I love the fact of, you know, documenting for 46 days. And at the end of that, you learned a lot about where you wanted to be. And then you saw an avenue that you could take. And I feel like everyone has the ability to do that if they'll put time into that particular practice.
Right.
Like you said, shut it off. Don't let outside distractions influence what you want as much. And then you'll find clarity into how to move forward.
For sure. Because I was kind of like we were talking about earlier, I was just trying to like emulate everyone else's life. Like I was just doing what I thought I was supposed to do, what was normal, do what my family expected, what society expected, what my friends were doing, blah, blah, blah. And that wasn't true to who I was. And I didn't realize that until like I got quiet.
Right. And so, you know, oftentimes business owners tend to deviate based on, you know, what one customer might have said, or, you know, what one Google review or Yelp review might have, you know, said about their experience. I mean, don't get off course if that's what makes you unique.
Yeah.
And I felt like that's what that time that you took to journal, you found your, you know, unique shtick within the world.
Yes, but I would say it is even more complicated than that. I think everything is a process. Trust the process. So that was a big wake up, like awareness moment.
Right.
And then I was consistently tested of, are you going to stay true to this? And so I think you have to be really honest with yourself as a human or as a business about like, what is it we're here to do? What is our service? What are our products? What is our messaging? What is our values? Whatever that may be. Like, if you're a business, if you're a human, why am I here? What is the impact I want to make on the world? What really inspires me and drives me, whatever it is. And like that first step of awareness of that is a big one, because a lot of people are just going and just kind of like sleepwalking
exactly
through life. So one, you've got to know what it is, and then two, you've got to stay true to it, and then that's what gets really hard, because you have all these other things coming in trying to derail you. So you get a bad review, or you get a negative social media message, or whatever it may be, and then you start to question everything. And so it's like, no, stay true to who we are.
100%. And so I want to build on this too. So you wrote the book, and then of course you had to market that book. And now tell us about that. Is that what led to the podcast that you now have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
what was the period of time? So you launched the book, and then you started the podcast when?
I launched the book in February of 2019, and I started the podcast in summer of 2019. So I want to say late July or early August.
Okay. And
what
led your decision making down that particular path?
I would like to say it was a very strategic business and marketing decision. It wasn't. It was a little bit more of, all right, so I'm going to get a little bit spiritual and like woo-woo. But I believe that if you pay attention, like life, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, gives you signs and like messages. And so I kept hearing from different people and random things like, oh, you should have a podcast. You should have a podcast. Because I was doing a bunch of podcast interviews to promote my book. So being a guest on other people's podcasts.
Okay.
And everyone kept telling me, oh, you should do a podcast. You should do a podcast.
So you dipped your toe in that world
a little bit, yes.
Without committing.
Yes. And I thought, this is fun. You just chat with people for an hour, which...
That's what we do here.
Sure. So,
it's my favorite hour every week. Yeah.
So that's why I just started. And this is where I said earlier, I'm very action oriented, but then I don't always stop and have like a plan and a strategy. And so if you live too much in needing a plan strategy, you get analysis paralysis.
Right.
If you live too much in action world like I do, then you just kind of make decisions and you move, and they might be the right moves, but you haven't put the marketing like power behind them. And so I believe life is always about coming back to the middle. So it's like you've got to be action oriented and strategic at the same time. Right. Not veering too much one way or the other.
So in a sense, I'm just going to use a terminology here. So the podcast has been around for a year.
A little over a year, yes.
Okay. So you've basically been in practice mode because you're an action oriented person. So you just went out and did it.
Yeah.
You found out that you enjoy it because you're a doer and you went head into it.
Yeah, because there's something to do every week.
Right. And so maybe now you're starting to weave yourself into the how do I refine it?
Yes.
Phase, which is good, because if you didn't start it in the first, if you overanalyzed it, you wouldn't have, what do you have, like 30, 50
episodes? Oh, I'm at like 70.
Oh, 70. Okay. So now that enabled you to learn a lot about yourself, but the content and the viewers along the way, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so when I first started, if I went back and listened to some of the old ones, it just would have been funny. And so I did, I don't want to say copy. I did look at what do other podcasters that I really enjoy do, and what do I like about their format. So in order to like build the format, I did look at, okay, what are other people doing? And I've changed it a little bit, but it does still feel right to me in terms of it's an interview format and a separately recorded intro and outro and whatnot. But I first started and, I had kind of Bobo cover art. I've since just recently got a graphic designer to redo that, so that looks better. I've played around a lot with the different social media posts, but I am now starting to be like, okay, now I'm ready to, I just the other day, you would have been proud of me, realized, because I put all of them, I just put the audio attached to a static image on YouTube. But my YouTube channel is called Kacie Main, not the Better You podcast. And I realized I was putting all those episodes up there without the Better You podcast in the title.
Oh, right.
So I wasn't getting like the Google SEO points for the Better You podcast living on YouTube. So I went in and I changed all the titles to include that. And already they're getting like more views.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing though, too, is like, I think a lot of people want to make this, big list of what, like Kacie just jumped off. And so, no, which is awesome, which is, she went out, she started creating content. And so she's starting to worry and refine the details now, which we're in the same boat, right? So when we started this show, me and Dania just turned the camera on and we had a topic. I don't even think we had an outline when we started. And so, now we've refined what the content of the Final Click marketing show is going to be versus the other videos that we're going to make. And, I think it gives us a really unique marketing strategy and angle that nobody else has the way that we're going to roll it out. The same thing with you, right? Because no one else can interview and talk exactly the way that you do. And so there's fans that are going to grab on, to both shows
Right.
because they assimilate with us.
Right.
And that's what's important, is that there's so many people in the world for us to connect with. I think a lot of people think they got to go viral.
Yeah.
They have to have 1 million, whatever. They got to have thousands of views on everything. And that's not true. You need 100, that's a quote from a famous book. Like, you need 100 true fans.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you really do, because those people will talk about you to their friends and will help spur you on.
Yeah. And the way I see it, like when I start to feel overwhelmed about everything I'm not doing to like, squeeze everything I can out of each piece of content, like each episode, I then remind myself, okay, but I'm still putting what I think is good quality. It could be better, of course, it could always be better, but good quality content out there. And there will come a time when I have some help to then go back and help me. It's not like it becomes irrelevant. Like, it's all evergreen content. So at some point I'll have some help to then go and start to squeeze more out of each piece of content. But the point is, like, it's created, like it's there.
Right. That's very true. I mean, myself, I go back and I watch videos on YouTube that are like 8 years old, because the topic is where I am in the moment. And I want to hear what, someone else's thought was about that.
Yeah.
And then, I might become a fan of theirs. I might not, right? We all keep searching along. But in the doing, and in having a unique voice and sitting down and thinking about, okay, how am I going to position myself within this space? That's what opens you up to the ability to gain fans. If you don't do that, I feel like you will never gain fans.
Well, and I think just having a lot of content out there, it's an element of legitimacy. So when I get to the point that I've got help to like squeeze everything I can and really be out there more promoting everything, when people then go to my podcast, they're going to see 70 plus episodes. So it's not like, oh, who's this new chick on the scene? It's like, oh, I've now found this person, but she's not new. And then I think that mentally, for whatever reason, people are weird about being like early adopters to somebody. So they're more likely to sign up for your email or follow you on social if they see that other people are as well. It's a sad statement, but I think it's true. Yeah,
those are the social proof, the verification things that, not that you belong, that's the wrong way, but that
that you're valuable. It's like we trust.
Right.
Why do we care about other people's reviews? Because we essentially trust other people's opinions. In some areas. In other areas, we really don't.
You shouldn't listen to some people.
Okay, but that brings up a good point. So we've kind of talked about like content, kind of just start and test and trust the process. But at some point, there is a little bit of a template we need to be following from a digital marketing perspective to be successful in terms of having a website or just a basic landing page and either an email capture or some kind of a call to action. So like, what is that stuff that we kind of have to be doing eventually?
Sure. So I want to organize this a little bit.
Okay.
So I feel like we just talked a lot about anxiety, getting over it, how you dealt with it, how I dealt with it a little bit. And now we're moving into, okay, we got started. We're not anxious anymore. How do we settle down and get over this overwhelming feeling of now I need to be everywhere, all at once? And, I think the answer is that, again, you don't. What you need is just to sit down and you need to get organized, basically. And so organization, I think, quiets the overwhelming factor that you might feel. And that is one thing that I think people bring me in what I do the most. I set a lot of processes. The processes create organization and cut out that overwhelming feeling. And you can do this yourself. I'm happy to help you with it too. But having a checklist and going, you know what? Okay, I'm going to start here because I can make content for this. And I'm going to do really good at this before I try and jump ship and do something that I'm not ready for or I'm not comfortable with, right? No one is forcing you to go into other channels or do more stuff.
Right.
That's all us just looking at other people saying we need to do that too. Okay. And when in a lot of cases, it's not true. No one's forcing you to do video or lives or go on YouTube or, Twitter or what have you. So oftentimes I feel like it's better if we don't crowd it first. Let's do a really good job up at one thing. If it's Instagram, if it's blogging, if it's email, right? Let's do really good at those things. And then let's start introducing new pieces to the puzzle as we see fit. And the as we see fit is when we feel like we have a good base and we're ready to expand our reach. And so reach is why people go into other channels.
Okay.
Is to try and go and grab more people that they don't already have access to.
Okay. So that's where I feel like I am. So I feel like I'm at a good place with producing the podcast and creating Instagram posts. Mm-hmm. And next, I feel like I need to expand to Pinterest. So it's like I'm moving in very baby steps.
That's great. There's no baby steps. I don't
it feels like baby steps. A year later, I'm now just joining Pinterest. But
in 2 weeks from now, I'm having my first kickoff call with a very large international corporation that has none of what you have.
Oh, okay.
So we're starting from scratch, and they've been around for decades, right? Mm-hmm. They deal with very large companies and they sell them very large things, and they're just now getting started on their marketing journey. And so that wasn't how they sold in the past. That wasn't the culture of the company until now. And so now someone within there sees the fact that, hey, if we want to grow, we need to prop these people up here. And so let's go instead of us just spinning our wheels, because we're a large organization, they can do that. Let's go right to the source and get good coaching to get us started. And so that's the baby steps, we're in baby steps here too, right? So, I wouldn't focus on that. I would just focus on, I'm ready to go to the next channel now, the next piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. Well, I think, so that brings up a good point that I think we maybe see in this market is people or businesses might not feel like they need to be on digital because they haven't been. And so, and it's been working. But all the statistics, like the change in the ad spend that you talked about the other day, like it's moving to digital. I feel like if there's one thing this coronavirus pandemic should have taught everybody is like, you've got to have some kind of digital online presence.
That's true. There's a lot of bias in this room right here. True. So because this is all that we do. I do think that's true. And so what we're seeing is, 200 years ago or whenever, when it was books and it was print and then it was TV and radio, you do need to follow where the people are to some degree. And today they are more so on digital, right? Now, the way you access them can be different than the way somebody else accesses them, right? So I choose to access people personally with me on video. And so you might be more comfortable getting started with photos, images, with writing articles, things of that nature, stuff that's still popular, right, amongst consumers. No one's forcing you to, like I said, to go be on live. It's just we've seen this migration happen to where your distribution should contain some form of digital.
Because that's where people are paying attention.
It's where we live today.
It's so sad, but that's true.
I mean, that phone is a full computer, lives in your pocket. And so, each person has their own sites and their own social media sites that they like best and where they get their information and all that. I mean, for instance, we just started on Medium because of Kacie, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so before, I couldn't handle going on Medium along with doing everything else. It wasn't in the cards at that time. So we're on there now. There's people that love to read articles, and there's people that don't like video. Not doing it, but there's people that don't like watching it, right? Yeah. In fact,
that goes back to like, where are you consuming your social media? Because a lot of times people are scrolling through stuff when they can't necessarily have audio on.
Right. And there's people that they're not patient enough. They want to skim through the article first and the content before they watch your whole video too. And so, there's all these little nuances with people. And again, the big thing with the internet, to calm the anxiety is that there's people for your organization to do business with that like all types of media. They prefer to read versus video. They prefer video versus reading. They like the audio cast, like on podcasts and such. A lot of them are still evangelists to certain magazines, right? You just need to find what works best for you on a consistent basis.
Yep.
And then you have to have a starting point and go, okay, we've maximized that starting point. Let's go to the next one. That's where I feel like we are right now, is that we're starting to get out of our starting point, and then we're starting to go, okay, how do we refine this and where do we go next? And that's not always from a distribution standpoint. It could be, we talked about, having a niche, right? And me and Kacie did. So we talked about having a niche. And so in terms of expansion, if you have a niche, it might be adding a sub niche. It's not always, I'm on Facebook, I'm going into Instagram now. That's one way, but it might also deal with the topics that you cover that then open you up to a whole nother world of people that you weren't previously able to tap into. And so we see this a lot with, a lot of the big internet personalities. They got big either in sports, or in makeup or in something else. And then they go into, talking to people about starting what they have. So then they're like mentors and coaches, and that's a different voice. That's a different argument that they have, and oftentimes a different revenue stream.
Right. But then even with businesses that maybe create and sell a product, like if you think of your potential customer base and start to segment them out, it's like, what is your messaging maybe changes per, so like those are your niches. And so it's like, okay, how am I going to market this product to this type of individual, and then like move on to other audience segments.
100%. We see this, I think we've seen it a lot in the makeup space, makeup and skincare and so on. They start with one product talking to one group of people. Then they add a supporting product, and they have a supporting message too, right? You could also go the other way. So you could have one product that you made for a certain group of people, but then you have supporting content that brings in a larger audience than what you currently have. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is there
It
always,
does in my head.
it does. Is there always more a personal brand or a company or whatever, is there always more that can be done through digital media? Like whether it be including another niche, like we just talked about, including another channel. Because like you talk a lot about the ability to scale. And I've even heard you mention, like, if you're starting to do really well on Google, then it's time to move to Bing. Like, is there always some other way you can grow?
I think so. I think it's endless, right?
Yeah.
Because we're now connected to people all over the world, whereas before we weren't. Okay. And so, I mean, you could sell something to people in Japan, right? That speak no English and, essentially don't, and your common denominator is Facebook, right? So you're able to reach those people. I think, again, the important thing is having a starting plan and then pivoting off of that where you see fit and continually growing. And so, if it's a product, it might be growing in terms of where you distribute that product. If you're a personal brand, it might be growing in terms of the topics that you cover, right? And so, if you take me, for instance, like I consume various types of business content, right? And so I think there's educational stuff that I read that comes from Google and Facebook itself about how to run better campaigns, what's working now, so on and so forth. But then there's also content from business coaches that I read in how to create an organization and establish a culture and do all that sort of stuff, how to hire and, things of that nature that help me in growth too.
Right. What if you're a local business and you just service a local area? Is there no ceiling there also?
No, I don't believe that there is, because within every community, the consumers in that, the citizens and consumers within that community, they're on every channel too. And I don't believe that we really act differently as people when we're shopping around. We have different values, of course, that we're looking for. But, as a local business, I think it's the way that you deliver, the way that you prospect for new business, I think can be unique. The way that you educate them can be unique. Your customer service before you get the sale, unique. Your product or service should in some way be unique versus the competition. And then the big thing that I don't see a lot of people do, and where I feel like there's a lot of growth and retention and money in this, is in the support. To me, customer service is before the sale, during the sale. Support is after the sale. And supporting and helping your new customer adapt to you and get the most out of your product and service is vital for retention. Okay. And for them to go and brag about you and say, oh my gosh, this business was so great. After they sold this thing to me, they then helped with all this other stuff. And I had some issues along the way, but the way they worked through those with me was incredible. And that's the way, then your digital marketing can turn into word of mouth.
Yeah. So I was just kind of trying to think through that, like how that would work with different types of businesses. And okay, so this is an idea, and I don't know if anyone's doing this. If not, feel free to take it. But like realtors, so they sell you a house, and then that's usually it. And maybe the repeat business is when you're ready to move this, they sell your house and help you find a new one. But they, like you're saying, for support, could maybe then offer additional services of helping you find everything that comes with a new house, like especially if you're new to the area, like almost like more of a local community, I don't want to say like guide, but connector of different services. So like you're going to need to have your AC service. Here's who I recommend for that. Your lawn, pool maintenance, bug sprayer people, whatever. Like think about like, moving, like if they sold your house, but then it's also here, I'm going to help you weed through the process of trying to find all these other house support entities.
Right. That's, I was talking to someone else the other day, and I was telling them that, it's not the customer's job to learn all the nuances they can do with your product and service. It's your job to share those with them. And, that's where, I walk in and I see a lot of business owners and stuff, and they tell me, oh, a certain group of people is using our product or service like this, well, great. I mean, have you spoken to them? Have you expanded? Have you expanded on that? Like, are you assisting them in formalizing it? And the answer a lot of times is no, unfortunately, but then that's a great opportunity for them to go and add on and grow. And so, all of those things, it's all part, I feel like people get overwhelmed by it. But again, if you trust in the process and you have some patience, okay, you take action, you get started, and you just start growing from there. I think that's where I would love to see everyone. Stagnation is what, kind of causes the decline.
Oh, for sure. It stops the flow of energy.
Right. And there's a lot of that even today. Even with all this new and with all the, low barrier to entry and low cost ways to communicate with people, there's still stagnation within a lot of businesses. And that's what, I think that's part of the reason that we do this show, is to help inspire them and push past stagnation and show them that it's really easy, and it's it can be convenient and at no major change to your organization to get started.
Yeah. Well, this episode was like digital marketing meets personal development.
Right. Yeah. That's what it like. The longer I do this and the more businesses that I go into, I realize that the business absorbs the personality of the leadership team.
Oh yeah.
And
I've worked in organizations where that was like abundantly clear.
Right. But then that's how everyone else in the organization acts. And then sooner or later, that's the outbound message that you put out. So you need to be cognizant of it,
Self-awareness.
And so actually Kacie's been taking us through a couple of exercises here that I think are fun, that help us learn about ourselves and our personality. And I don't want to butcher this. It's human design.
Okay, so there were several that I showed you guys. So human design is one that looks at it's like an astrology reading on steroids. So it really speaks to kind of how you're supposed to make decisions and also how to like respect your own energy. Like mine is very much pay attention to when you feel burnt out and stop and rest, or that's going to like impact your work. So we looked at human design, and then we also looked at people map. That's what we did late yesterday afternoon, which is really specific to organizations and what are the different personalities and how do people communicate. And really the main theme of all of them is to point out to people, everyone is unique. People are different. They operate different. They think different. They communicate different. And the best teams and the world, we need everyone.
That's right.
Like you need that variety.
I would like to link those in the comments or this show. Every show that we do goes up on our website as a blog post. So we're going to link links to those. So if you're interested, you should. They're free, right?
Yeah. Well, no, People Map isn't.
Okay. So we'll link the free one. And so you guys can do this with each other, because it's really interesting. It was interesting for us to see how we could work better together as a team. Right. And so the personality thing is a big component of that, because we all need to be communicating with each other in a way to which we can get the most out of each other. Right. So I think that goes towards, play towards your strengths. Don't try and, build up your weaknesses too much. I feel like I kind of butchered that.
No. Well, it's more like embrace and accept your own uniqueness.
Right.
And that is on the level of every one of your team. They are each unique individuals. So then you as a business and your little like think tank is unique because you're made up of all those unique individuals. So it kind of ties back to one of our beginning messages of like, don't try and emulate what other people are doing. Find your unique voice as a business, your personality, your offering, your service, and then stay true to that. Right.
So I think we covered a lot of this. Okay. You know what? I think we're also we might do a wider episode on that personality and culture.
Okay.
thing. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I went all in on it. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Please, if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. And again, if you want to rewatch this episode, it will be up on our blog at soudmarketing.com/blog. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Instagram.